The neon sign buzzed softly in the warm dusk air. Maple Creek Diner? It was the kind of small-town place that smelled like bacon grease and remembered birthdays. The parking lot held 5 cars, a few old pickups, and one oddly out-of-place electric BMW. Bill Gates stepped out of the car and stretched lightly. He wore no suit today, just a light blue shirt, slightly wrinkled from the drive, and a navy windbreaker. He looked around the quiet town of Oakwood, Nebraska, population just under 9,000, and smiled faintly. This wasn't the kind of place where billionaires came for dinner. He hadn't eaten since morning. His schedule had run long at the Regional Tech Forum, and this small diner was the only spot open on the way out of town. It had been a spontaneous decision. He liked those lately. Maybe it was age. Maybe it was something else. As he approached the door, the bell above jingled. Inside, it smelled like fried potatoes and warm bread. A soft country tune played from a dusty wall speaker. A few tables were taken by locals, an elderly couple sharing dessert, 2 teenagers laughing over milkshakes, and a farmer reading the paper. A waitress glanced up from behind the counter. She had warm eyes and a messy ponytail. Her name tag read Talia. "Evenin'," she called cheerfully. "Anywhere you like." Bill chose a booth by the window and took a seat. He studied the laminated menu, meatloaf special. His mother used to make something just like it. Talia appeared a moment later with a glass of water. "Can I start you with coffee?" "That would be great." "Thank you," Bill said. She smiled, turned to grab the pot, but was suddenly interrupted. A sharp voice came from the kitchen. "Talia?" Talia glanced back. A woman in her mid-40s had appeared near the pass-through window. She wore a flour-dusted apron that read Melissa. Her eyes locked on Bill. She froze. "Talia," she said again, this time quieter but firm. "Come here a second." The waitress frowned, excused herself, and walked over. The 2 women whispered near the register. Bill could see Melissa's shoulders tense. She kept looking at him, and her voice grew tighter with each word. Talia nodded hesitantly, then looked down at her shoes. The room had grown quieter. Melissa wiped her hands on her apron and marched over to Bill's booth. Talia followed, reluctant. "I'm sorry," Melissa said flatly, "but I won't serve you here." Bill blinked. "Excuse me? I know who you are." "Mr. Gates," she continued, her voice calm but laced with something harder. "I don't agree with what you stand for. I don't like what you're doing with your money or your influence. And this is my diner." She folded her arms across her chest. "I decide who eats here." Silence fell like a sheet of ice across the room. A fork clinked onto a plate somewhere in the background. Every eye was on the booth. Talia looked anywhere but at him. Bill sat still for a long moment. Then slowly, he closed the menu and placed it on the table. His expression didn't harden, didn't flinch. If anything, he looked tired. "I understand," he said simply. Melissa was caught off guard. She had braced for a protest, a lecture, a social media storm. Not this. "I respect your honesty," he added, standing up. He reached for his coat, slid out of the booth, and met her gaze without anger. "Have a good evening," he said. The bell above the door jingled again as he stepped back, into the cooling evening air. He sat in his car for several moments, not starting the engine. He stared at the small, pink and teal diner glowing against the early night. Through the window, he could see Melissa talking to a table of concerned customers. Talia stood near the coffee pot, biting her lip. Bill opened his phone, scrolled. Then he pressed a number. A voice picked up after 2 rings. "Hello?" "Hey," Bill said. "Remember that little thing we talked about last month? I think I found the right place." He glanced once more at the diner. "Yeah," he said. "Tomorrow works? I'll send you the address." The call ended. He started the engine. As he pulled away, a Johnny Cash song played low on the radio. But he wasn't listening. His stomach still growled, but in his chest something else stirred. Not anger, hope. By the time Bill Gates arrived back at his hotel, the sky over Oakwood had turned a deep indigo, the kind of blue that makes streetlights feel colder than they are. He ordered a sandwich from room service but barely touched it. Instead, he sat at the small desk near the window, opened his laptop and typed a single sentence into a blank document. "She had every right to turn me away." Then he stared at the cursor blinking. He wasn't going to tweet. He wasn't going to post some vague statement that would invite outrage. What happened at Maple Creek Diner didn't need a reaction. But something inside him, some ache, some flicker of memory, kept him from letting it go entirely. He saved the file, closed the laptop, and went to bed. The next morning across town, Talia Reynolds opened the diner at dawn. She fumbled with the keys and pushed open the glass door. The place smelled like old coffee and vinyl booths. Quiet, still, but her stomach wasn't. Melissa hadn't spoken much after Bill Gates left the night before. Just told Talia to lock up and head home. But Talia hadn't slept either. She couldn't shake the look on his face, not angry. Just sad. That bothered her more than any yelling would have. She checked the register, prepped the coffee machines. When she looked outside, she froze. A small group of people had gathered on the sidewalk. Not protesters, just waiting. Some clutched takeaway cups from the gas station down the street. Others leaned on car hoods, chatting quietly. A woman held a camera. A man wore a Local First t-shirt. "What the?" Talia muttered. She opened the door cautiously. "Morning," said a tall man with a microphone clipped to his jacket. "Channel 8 News, Camden Walsh. We're just wondering," he continued. "Is it true that Bill Gates was turned away from this diner last night?" Talia's throat went dry. I don't know what you're talking about." The man smiled kindly but didn't back off. "He posted something late last night. It's going viral." Talia's heart dropped. She pulled out her phone and searched. There it was, a photo of the Maple Creek Diner taken from across the street. The caption read, "Stopped by a charming little diner last night. Owner didn't want to serve me. That's her right. Still smelled like the best meatloaf in 3 states. If you're in Oakwood, try it. Support small businesses, even when they disagree with you. Respect your local matters." Thousands of likes, thousands of comments. Supporters, detractors, memes, debates. And nowhere in the post had he even mentioned Melissa's name. Just kindness, just dignity. Talia felt dizzy. Behind her, Melissa arrived, breathless and wide-eyed. Her phone buzzed nonstop. "I just saw it," she whispered. "Why would he do that?" Talia showed her the post. "I think he meant it." Melissa blinked hard as if the image might change. "Is this some trap? Is he setting me up? Does it look like a trap?" Talia asked gently. More people arrived. By 6:15, the diner's parking lot was full. Talia flipped on the lights. Melissa stood frozen, staring at the crowd through the glass. "They're not here to yell," Talia said. "They just want pancakes." By 7 a.m., the diner was busier than it had been in 3 years. Every table was full. A waiting list formed by 7:30. Local radio hosts sat near the window, recording audio. Melissa cooked in silence. Talia served with her apron askew and heart racing. Around noon, during a brief lull, Melissa slipped into the back office. Talia followed with a cup of coffee. Melissa sat at her tiny desk and stared at the wall. "He could have destroyed us," she whispered. One tweet, one name drop. That's all it would have taken. "But he didn't," Talia said. "No," Melissa said, her voice cracking. "He sent them here." Later that night, after the diner closed, Talia returned home to her grandmother Eliza. She told her everything. About the crowd. About the post. About how Bill Gates had looked when he left. And how he hadn't fought back. Eliza listened silently, knitting half-finished in her lap. When Talia finished, Eliza said, "You know, when I was young, your grandfather and I ran a corner store. There were people back then we were told not to serve. We didn't listen." Talia sat down on the couch. "Did it cost you?" "Some things, yes," Eliza said. "But we slept well. That matters." She looked at her granddaughter. "Kindness isn't weakness, Talia. It's knowing you could break something and choosing not to." The next morning, mail began arriving at the diner. Letters from strangers, emails from supporters, even a bouquet of flowers with a note. "To the diner that got it wrong and then got it right." And then there was a single cream-colored envelope. No return address. Just one line written in deliberate cursive. Melissa Hargrove, Maple Creek Diner. Talia hesitated. Then she slipped it onto Melissa's desk. Melissa didn't open it right away. Not until the next night when the diner was empty and the coffee was cold. Inside was a handwritten letter. "Dear Ms. Hargrove, first, thank you for your honesty. In a world where people often hide behind false smiles, your directness was refreshingly clear. You had every right to refuse me service. It's your diner, your rules, I respected that. But I want you to know I didn't walk away angry. I walked away hoping. Hoping that even when we disagree, there's still space for dignity. Still space for grace. The meatloaf smelled amazing, by the way. I've thought about it more than I probably should. Warm regards, Bill. Melissa sat very still after reading it. Then she read it again. Talia, wiping down the counter, didn't say anything, but she saw it, the way Melissa's fingers trembled. The way she pressed the letter to her chest before quietly slipping it into her purse. 2 days had passed since the letter arrived. Melissa hadn't spoken much about it. She carried it with her, slipped into the side pocket of her purse like something sacred, but never mentioned it. Not to Talia, not to the other waitresses, not even to Hector, the part-time cook who'd been with her since the place opened. But her demeanor had changed. She smiled more. Her shoulders, usually hunched with tension, had relaxed ever so slightly. And one morning, she did something unheard of. She brewed the coffee herself and brought a cup to Talia before the shift started. That was when Talia knew something was coming. Friday afternoon, the diner's usual buzz was replaced by something quieter, a kind of hum beneath the surface. The media frenzy had died down slightly, but people still visited from out of town, just to sit in the same booth where Bill Gates hadn't eaten. Melissa waited until the lunch crowd cleared out before she gathered the staff in the back. She stood in front of the sink, hands in her apron pockets. Her voice was even but soft. "I've made a decision," she said, "and I'd like your help." They all looked at her uncertain. She pulled out the cream-colored letter. "I want to invite him back." Silence. "You mean Bill Gates?" Danny, one of the newer waitresses, asked. Melissa nodded. "For dinner. After we close, no press. No photos, just a real conversation. Face to face." Talia's eyes widened. "You're serious?" "Yes," Melissa said. I think it's the right thing." She paused, then looked directly at Talia. "I want you there, too." "Me?" Talia blinked. "Why?" "Because you were the first one who questioned me that night," Melissa said. "And because I need someone who knows how to say the hard things gently." "Like he does." Talia swallowed. "Okay, I'll come." That night, Melissa stayed late after closing. Talia did too. They sat in booth number 6, the one closest to the window. With a fresh sheet of notepaper, Melissa drafted the invitation in longhand. She insisted on doing it that way. "It should match the letter he sent," she explained. They rewrote it 3 times. When it was done, the words were simple. "Dear Mr. Gates, thank you for your letter. Your kindness in the face of rejection humbled me more than any argument ever could. I would like to invite you back to Maple Creek Diner for dinner this Friday at 7 p.m. after we close. Just you, me, and one of my staff. No media, no spectacle. Just a meal and I hope a conversation. There's also someone I think you should meet. My waitress, Talia's grandmother, Eliza Reynolds, believes she may have known your mother when they were young. She has photographs and a memory you might appreciate. Sincerely, Melissa Hargrove." When the letter was sealed and addressed, Melissa turned to Talia. "How do we get it to him?" Talia thought for a moment. "Camden Walsh, the news guy. He mentioned Gates is visiting the local community college tomorrow for an education talk. I could give it to him." Melissa hesitated. "Can we trust a reporter not to turn this into a headline?" "He promised," Talia said. "And honestly, I think he wants this to stay real too." Camden agreed to deliver the letter in person. He didn't pry. He didn't even ask for a copy. "I'll make sure it gets to him," he said. Off the record. And true to his word, he did. 2 days later, Melissa's phone buzzed at 4:12 p.m. The screen displayed a number she didn't recognize. She answered. "Ms. Hargrove?" The voice on the line asked. "This is Bill Gates." Melissa stood so fast she knocked over her coffee. Hello," she stammered. "I got your letter," he said gently. "Thank you. I'd be honored to come. Friday at 7 works perfectly." A pause. "May I bring dessert?" Melissa almost laughed. "Yes," she said. "Yes, of course." The rest of the week passed in a blur. Melissa cleaned every corner of the diner, like she was preparing for a health inspection and a wedding at the same time. She tested 3 meatloaf recipes before settling on the original. "We're not trying to impress him," she insisted. "We're trying to be honest. Talia invited Eliza, who immediately pulled out a faded blue photo album. "He won't remember me," Eliza said, flipping through old images of dusty front porches and school uniforms. "But I knew his mother when we were girls. She once chased a boy 3 blocks for pulling my braid. Sounds familiar," Talia said with a grin. They picked out a photo, 2 young women, arms around each other, laughing under a tree. "This one," Eliza said, pressing her finger to the corner. "That's the one he'll recognize." On Friday, the diner closed an hour early. Melissa wore a navy dress under her apron. Talia wore her cleanest blouse. Eliza wore pearls and tucked the photo album into her bag like it was treasure. They want to invest, enough to renovate the kitchen, expand into the empty store next door, and hire 5 more employees. Full health insurance for everyone working full-time. The room exploded in cheers. Danny clapped. Hector blinked in stunned silence. Eliza nodded slowly, knowingly. Melissa raised her hand to quiet them. "I wanted you to hear it from me before it became a rumor. And I wanted you to know I haven't accepted yet." Heads tilted in confusion. "I was scared," Melissa admitted. "That accepting help from someone I once turned away made me a hypocrite. That I'd compromised my values." She looked around the room. "But then I realized values aren't static. They grow, they adapt, and sometimes they lead you right back to where you began, only wiser." She turned to Talia. "This place started as a diner, but now it's something more. And if we're going to accept this investment, it has to come with one promise." The staff waited. "From now on, Maple Creek Diner serves everyone," she said clearly. "No exceptions. No judgments. You come in hungry, we feed you. Period." Silence, then Danny wiped her eyes. Hector nodded. Even Eliza smiled. "I think that's exactly what this place was always meant to be," Talia said. By the end of the month, renovations had begun. The old kitchen was torn out and replaced with gleaming stainless steel counters. The dining room was doubled, taking over the dusty storefront that once sold antiques. New booths, same old checkered curtains. Melissa didn't hire a marketing firm. She didn't rebrand the place. She just put up a new sign above the entrance. "Maple Creek Diner, come as you are." Bill Gates returned twice over the next 3 months. The second time, he brought a stack of books and sat near the counter, chatting with students from the local high school robotics club. He paid for everyone's meal and left quietly, unnoticed by all but Talia and Melissa. But the change had already begun. Other businesses in town felt the ripple effect. A shuttered hardware store reopened after another quiet investment. The local library received a surprise donation to update their computer lab. The tech gap in Oakwood was slowly closing, not with noise, not with speeches, but with quiet, deliberate care. One evening, Eliza sat across from Talia as they watched the dinner crowd settle in. A young couple shared a milkshake. An elderly man with a laptop typed quietly near the back. A woman in scrubs waited for her to-go order. "Feels different in here now?" Eliza said softly. "It is," Talia replied. "It's lighter." Eliza looked out the window where the sun dipped low behind the trees. "You know," she said, "your generation always talks about revolutions. But I think kindness might be the quietest one of all." 6 months later, summer settled over Oakwood like a soft quilt. The fields outside town swayed with green, and the street outside Maple Creek Diner buzzed with new life. There were more cars than usual, more visitors, more kids biking past with lemonade in hand. The diner itself had changed too, but not in the ways people feared. The new kitchen ran smoothly. The expanded dining area was full most days, especially on weekends. A chalkboard near the register now listed, "Local First Community." Project, school fundraisers, blood drives, tech donation boxes. People didn't just eat here anymore. They gathered. And still, Melissa brewed the first pot of coffee herself every morning. Just like always, Talia had a desk now. An actual desk, tucked into a corner near the dry goods shelf. Assistant manager. It wasn't a fancy title, but it meant health insurance for Eliza. It meant choices. It meant breathing room. And every Friday afternoon, without fail, a certain booth near the back remained reserved. On one particular July morning, Talia arrived early to organize inventory. She was halfway through checking paper towel boxes when the bell above the door jingled. She looked up and smiled. Bill Gates stepped inside, holding a familiar brown leather briefcase and a to-go cup from the bakery down the street. "Booth 5? She asked. "Always," he replied. She poured him coffee and brought over his usual, 2 eggs over easy. Wheat toast, crispy bacon. Melissa appeared from the kitchen moments later, wiping her hands on her apron. "If I ever forget your order, you're legally allowed to fire me as a friend." Bill chuckled. "Noted." Their conversation drifted toward town news. The old movie theater renovation, the community college expanding its tech programs, the scholarship fund they had launched together. "You know," Melissa said quietly, "I used to think Oakwood was invisible, forgotten." Bill looked around. It was never invisible, just waiting for someone to believe in it again. After lunch, Melissa and Bill lingered over pie. Eliza had come in earlier, now sitting near the window knitting something blue and soft. A baby blanket for a waitress expecting her first child. Delia joined them, wiping her hands on her apron. "We got another letter." Melissa raised a brow. "Support or hate mail?" "Neither," Talia grinned. "An invitation. The mayor wants to feature Maple Creek in the state's annual business conference. You're officially a case study now." Bill raised his mug. "To accidental revolutions." That evening, the diner glowed under the fading light. Talia sat with her grandmother on the bench outside. The same one where they used to share a single cup of coffee on tight weeks. "It feels like everything changed," Talia murmured.